It is 6 o'clock. I will call the March 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. This evening we have Pastor Shelley Kyle from the Bethlehem Baptist Church to offer invocation. If you would please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Kyle.
May we bow our heads in prayer. Almighty and eternal God, we thank you for this city council meeting, for all those in authority, for all the leaders, for each and every one that is here. We pray, God, that you just fill this place with your presence. We ask that you lead, guide, direct, and support. I pray that you give wisdom and understanding for all the topics that are going to be discussed, and for those that will be resolved, that they may bring blessings and benefit our community. May we continue to flourish and grow in all the good things that will have an impact on our city. We pray that your will to be done here and in all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started this evening, I'd like to welcome a couple of guests, Mayor Taylor and Dr. Poole, our newly minute school superintendent. Thanks for coming out. The first item on our agenda is citizens' time. We have one person signed up, Ms. Meyer.
Yes, good evening. I'd like to speak to you for just a moment about the Electronic Registration Information Center. This was established in 2012, and actually, I would like you to look at the information that was sent to you, and on behalf of Wythe County, I'd like you to please contact all our elected officials and the Association of Counties and have them assess this data harvesting base that can be used for a lot of nefarious purposes and circumvent our freedoms. The information, handing over the management of our voter rolls and all our election data to a company that can do whatever, that is just heading towards possible sabotage and everything else. So we'd like to have that taken care of as best possible and have our elected officials look into it and possibly remove us from this data harvesting service, the Electronic Registration Information Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. It's the only person we have signed up for citizens' time, so I'll close citizens' time. This evening we have several public hearings scheduled. The first one is for a camera speed monitoring and enforcement ordinance. I'll read the notice of public hearing. In compliance with the Code of Virginia and the amendments thereto, the Wythe County Board of Supervisors will conduct a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance entitled Camera Speed Monitoring and Enforcement in Highway Work Zones and School Crossing Zones Ordinance of Wythe County, Virginia. The public hearing will be held on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 at 6:05 p.m. in the boardroom of the Wythe County Office Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, at which time the board will hear comments from citizens concerning the proposed ordinance. A copy of the proposed ordinance is on file for the public review in the County Administrator's Office located at 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, or online at www.withco.org. Mr. Barrett, we don't have anybody signed up to speak for the public hearing on that ordinance, so I'll close the public comment section. Do you have anything to add?
As you are aware, the Code of Virginia now allows for this type of camera speed monitoring in the highway work zones and school crossing zones. County Attorney has assisted in drafting an ordinance for your all's review. Hearing no opposition to it, staff would recommend adoption of this ordinance.
Mr. Farthing, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have anything to add.
That being said, I'll open the floor up for any discussion.
In the school zones, are we gonna be able to put the signs up, or is we gonna have VDOT put those up?
The way I understand it is that the selected firm, whoever we pick to do the camera enforcement, would have to get all the permits and do the installations. So that they would have to coordinate with VDOT.
So are we gonna have a better response from VDOT than what we've had in the past about signs?
I couldn't say. We'll certainly do what we can.
Okay, because I know that's one of the concerns, right, is the signage.
Probably not so much on the school zones. I expect we're all going to be on the same team there. The issue is probably going to be the highway work zones and how those are signed.
Should be the same, right? It's a sign's a sign, whether it's on a work zone or a school zone.
That's how I would interpret it. That's how probably most people in this room would interpret it. I can't swear that VDOT will interpret it that way.
Did we determine if the work zone is going to include the interstates or not?
I think that is what the question that's still been determined.
Okay.
Sheriff Foster may want to address that, or he may want me just to mention it. Sheriff Foster's requested an opinion from the Attorney General's office to determine whether localities can enforce in the interstate interstate construction zones, and expects an answer probably in the next 8 weeks or so.
So basically, if we vote to adopt this ordinance, as of right now, we'll just stick to the school zones and then cross the bridge of the highway zones when we have an answer back?
I think adopting the ordinance gives you the ability to proceed with it.
Okay.
Then, later, Mr. Hankins has a discussion on selection of a contractor that we would partner with that would obtain all the necessary permits, to install, and would be working with you all in the sheriff's office of where we will be placing those things. And obviously, I think school zones, I don't want to call it the low-hanging fruit, but I think will definitely be the area that we will be working in first.
Absolutely.
And then the other, obviously depending upon the Attorney General's opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
I make a motion, we accept the ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook to approve ordinance number 2022-2 with a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Aye.
So approved. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a fiscal year 22 budget amendment. And Mr. Barrett, I will ask you to read that one because I'm scrolling down here trying to find it.
I will be glad to. Notice is hereby given pursuant to 15.2-2507 of the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors intends to consider an amendment to increase the FY 22 budget as follows. School construction, architect, and engineering fees, $1 million. Lots Gap Tank engineering fees, $500,000. Fort Chiswell wastewater treatment plant engineering fees, $450,000. Max Meadow sewer infiltration repairs, $1,009,000. Rail design and construction, $2 million. Lot 24 force main, $1,600,000. And Fort Chiswell conveyance system, $18,600 for a total of $6,577,600. A public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 at 6:05 PM or as soon as practical thereafter in the boardroom of the County Administration Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, 24382, to hear public comment on the proposed budget amendment.
And we don't have anybody signed up to comment on that public hearing, so I will close citizens' time. Mr. Barrett, you want to explain this one?
Yes, be glad to. The what you got is an amendment to this year's budget. Due to the high dollar of it, it does require a public hearing to be held. The next page of your package actually shows the offsetting revenues that go with each of these projects. So the rail project that we're amending the increase of it of $2 million, you've got $450,000 in the Commonwealth Transportation Board grant, and the balance coming out of our industrial development reserves. Lots Gap Engineering is $500,000, and that revenue will be coming out of our, we will be using our interim financing to get started with that project. That will be, the total funding of that, it will be a larger amount than this, but the total funding of that project will be shared with Wythe. The Fort Chisholm Treatment Plant engineering fees of $450,000. We have that planning to come out of the expected tobacco grant we are supposed to be receiving. The $1,009,000 for the Max Meadows sewer infiltration repairs. About 3 or 4 meetings ago, you all approved the loan from DEQ for the $1,209,000 on it. That is the revenue source that goes with it. Lot 24 Force Main is $1.6 million. We will be using our expected funds coming from the state of Virginia, the VEDP funds associated with our Lot 24 project for that. The Fort Chisholm conveyance system of $18,600 will be coming out of our current wastewater reserves. And last is the school construction project for $1 million. This will put the money into our 6120 account, which is our school construction project, which will be for architects and engineering fees and beginning of the construction phase. This comes out of the $1 million that you all set aside last year that the school returned in unspent funds that we put in reserves. That money will go towards that. So that's the increase in the revenues that offset it. And I would recommend that the board approve those changes to the FY22 budget.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendments to the FY22 budget as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? I just want to say one thing, to borrow a phrase from Governor Youngkin, it looks like Wythe County's open for business. Yes, sir. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. And our final public hearing is in compliance with the Code of Virginia 1950 and amendments thereto. The Wythe County Board of Supervisors will conduct a public hearing to consider amendment number 1 to Ordinance 2021-06 entitled Supervisors District and Voting Precinct Ordinance of Wythe County, Virginia. The Board of Supervisors shall hear comments from citizens concerning the proposed amendment. The public hearing shall be held on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 at 6:05 p.m. in the boardroom of the Wythe County Office Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia. A copy of the proposed amendment number 1 may be found online at www.wythco.org or at the County Administrator's Office, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, for public review. Mr. Barrett, do you want to explain this one?
Yes, the proposal here is to relocate from literally across the street over here. I don't know what y'all call that building, with the old Wytheville Recreation Center building, is the current Wytheville precinct, East Wytheville precinct. This would move it to Spiller Elementary School, which is in line with a lot of other precincts that are all at the schools, and it does away with potential conflicts that the electoral board and registrar were concerned about having with potential primaries in June over here. So this just would be the action to relocate that precinct.
All right, I'll open the floor up for a motion to approve amendment number 1 to ordinance 2021-06.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Cook.
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else under the public hearings, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, from the meeting you and I missed, that's all the public hearings they scheduled that night.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned. Next item on the agenda is, excuse me, payment of invoices. Every board member has received a list of invoices to be paid in their board package. I'll entertain a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Burton. Is there any questions, discussion, or any invoice that any board member wants to pull out? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our previous meeting from March the 8th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions, discussion, or corrections to the minutes as presented?
It-
Here-
I'm sorry, I believe that's the one that you missed, right? It says you're present.
No.
No,
the
that
next
is correct.
meeting- No, I was there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One before.
Sorry about that. I was sitting here trying to think of the date in my head.
Apparently I just wasn't memorable. Is there any
Time
other
flies.
questions? All right, all those in favor of approval of minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is old business. Mr. Baird, do we have anything under old business?
The only thing we do have some, a few appointments still outstanding. I've gotten a positive response for a potential one, and we'll try to have that on our next agenda for moving ahead with a couple of our appointments that we still have left.
Does anybody else have anything for old business? We'll move on to reports. First report we have is Treasurer, Ms. Gwen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I feel like I'm so far away. I'm used to the podium being a little closer. It's like I've got to have my glasses to see you all or something.
We're prepared for COVID 2022.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have changed that. Okay, well, to cover the treasurer's report that was in your board packet for tonight. The consolidated account contains a balance as of February 28th of $74,326,979, and included in that balance is the general fund balance, which is $50,092,427. Any questions on the treasurer's report? Everything's kind of pretty cut and dry, the increases and, or any line items that maybe looked odd to you? Okay. Only other thing that I have for you, to make you aware, over the weekend, I pulled our delinquent real estate and personal property bill files to send those out to the printer service yesterday, so I did get those sent out. So around March, probably around the 30th, 31st, April 1st, I'm not sure how the date range is going to work out. Those bills will be received by our taxpayers. Combined between real estate and personal property, both will be mailing out close to 10,000 tax bills. So those have the balance that's due through April, so it'd be through April 30th. Personal property bills also include the note on each of them that if the bills aren't paid by the end of April, then May 1st, DMV hold would be placed against them through the DMV. So generally, pretty close to May 1st, as close as we can, we try to go ahead and get those uploaded, so we give everybody 30 days at least in receiving that notice to be aware of that occurring. Real estate bills do include previous year balances on them. Personal property does not, but there is a note on those that states if a previous balance is owed, that it's not reflected on that bill. the way the system prints, we're unable to get the previous balances to print out correctly without doubling bills for folks. So we don't include previous balances on there, but real estate we do. So that's kind of what's going on with us at this point. We're getting ready. We've got court dates scheduled to start issuing warrants in debt. So we'll start with that here in, well, probably within about the next week or two, because our first court date is in April. So we'll start with that and try to just keep working toward collections. Last time I was here, I spoke about mills tax, continuing to work on those. We have had a couple of businesses that have closed, so you'll notice a difference with our mills tax revenue that's coming in right now. And of course, keep in mind, the Burger King that is off the exit where the state police headquarters is and the Apex Center, can't ever remember the exit number. Of course, they're still closed for renovations. So, that's affected us a lot too, because that's, a nice amount of revenue that's normally coming in each month that we haven't been getting the last couple of months. So our revenues are kind of fluctuating through mills tax, but a lot of it is dependent upon when the folks that are behind are paying, but then also to, like I said, we have some businesses that have either closed or they're closed right now for remodeling. So if we can get Burger King open back up pretty soon, that'll help make a difference too. And I don't know what the status is on that either. So have you all heard anything
I have
of
not.
their reopening? Okay. One other question I had, we joined the Cigarette Tax Board. I guess it's probably more a question for you, Mr. Bayer. So I'm gonna ask now while I have the chance. We joined that board and they're to collect the tax and remit to the county. When is that revenue to start coming in to us? Because we have not received anything at this point.
I will follow up with them, but
Okay.
you should be receiving something, if not this month.
Okay. I didn't know if it was a
about-
monthly basis or a quarterly basis. I was kind of
If
assuming
They're
it was.
doing
is it
reporting
quarterly?
monthly, but it's gonna be a quarterly payment, I
Okay,
believe, is how we
okay,
set
so
it
that
up.
makes sense. I didn't know if it was like the meals and lodging tax of, what was collected in January should have come to us in February, but if they're remitting quarterly, then probably April will receive payment for this first quarter then. Okay, that answers that, so, okay. Well, that's all that I have. Anyone have any questions?
Does anybody have anything for Ms. Gwen? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I love your looking down like you, as long as she don't ask me something, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You throw a lot of numbers out there to us.
Not as many as usual.
All right, we have the Commissioner of Revenue, Ms. Vaught. I know you're itching to get up here and speak.
Yes, you know I am. I just have, hello. I just have a brief update about the reassessment. They have finished the field work. They've pretty much finished all of the data entry. We're having a little bit of problem getting some information out of the system that they need to put on the notices. Our IT department is working with Vision, which is the software company, and the Wampler and Eames to get that information. So I have every confidence that they'll be able to do that, and we'll be getting the notices out very shortly. I don't have anything else unless you have any questions about that.
She contacted us yesterday, and Matt and myself and IT Director, Mr. Catcher, and I went down, met with them, reviewed what, with the current system, the old system, the data. You've got to show 2 previous years of data on the land card when you send it out. So you show the 20 value, the 21 value, and the 22 value. Just trying to pull that history in, so Mr. Catcher is working with them to get that pulled.
And we gave them extension.
March 31st.
March 31st.
Yes.
And do we think they're gonna be done? Because when they asked for extension, they said they wouldn't need that long, and it's March 22nd.
We asked. They have indicated yes.
I guess, Mr. Farthing, you probably need to do that contract and see what they knew what system we were switching over to, and they assured us that they could handle it, so.
And the Code of Virginia to make sure
Yeah.
what that extension thing is. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how far they can extend out. So,
I think 90 days is.
I think that's the max, yeah.
So, I mean, we'll cross our fingers and hope that they get done, but,
I think they're wanting to get done too.
oh, I'm sure they are. All right, does anybody have anything for Ms. Dahl? Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Painless again. All right, Sheriff Foster, you have anything? Since he didn't have anything, Dr. Poole, you wanna take his minute? You have anything? Well, you're wasting time.
No, I apologize for missing out last week, but I'm going to report that we're still waiting on information for the budget, but everything that we have seen to this point, we feel good about where we are. Spoke with Mr. Bear about a few things that we will be discussing at a future date as far as projects and timing of those projects because of delays in materials, among other things. So I'll probably be speaking to you in the near future about roofing projects that don't know that there's any way we can get a roofing project finished this fiscal year. So very real possibility that we request to carry over money into next year from this year rather than trying to squeeze it in now and have a full year to complete it. Had some information from our A&E firm. That one roofing project went out, didn't get any bids. That's never a good sign. So rather than fight that battle right now, I feel like if we push forward, we'd be in a better position to be able to come up with it over 365 days rather than 90. So that's a possibility that we will look at going forward. We did get some good news about Jackson, and we feel like that project, as far as the water heater, will be in before the end of this fiscal year, which is a good thing. At first, we were on a waiting list for about 18 months for a new water heater. They were in contract with Beckner Boiler, and we're looking at about an 8-week turnaround time, and that was somewhere in the neighborhood. Installation or the piping and the water heater itself for around $50,000. Of course, that is covered with insurance money. The roof has been dried in by Dufford Roofing, so it's a matter of getting the equipment there and getting it installed. So we have transferred all the hot water over to the smaller water heater to serve our kitchen. So we're in good shape right now with everything at Jackson.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, move into new business. We have the consent calendar. Each of you received a copy of the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Horny. Is there any questions or discussion about the consent calendar? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. So approved. Next item on the agenda is our fiscal year 22 expenditure budget fourth quarter appropriations.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that the Apex Center line number 8110 be removed from the expenditure budget for fourth quarter appropriations.
And I'm not ignoring you, I just had a pop-up, I'm trying to get it to close, I'm sorry. All right, what was the line item, Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, it's 8110, the Appalachian Regional Expo Authority. It's on there for $52,218, and I request that we withhold those funds for the fourth quarter appropriation, sir.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Terry to remove 8110, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I might I ask you to do one thing for me? Would you mind leaving the $2,218 in there and strike the $50,000? we had some insurance payments and things like that that are part of that as well. The 50,000 is what is a payment, and I think that is what you want to have removed.
Yes, sir.
And that way, we've got enough money to make certain we cover those other expenditures under insurance and items like that. Would that be
I
acceptable?
could do that.
Was that,
I will amend my request, Mr. Chairman, to pull out $50,000 from the line item 8110 for the Appalachian Regional Expo Authority.
all right,
And withhold the 50.
we have a amended motion, Mr. Smith, does that change your
So
second?
you're only pulling out 50,000 instead of the full two.
Instead of the full
200,000.
52, and that way, because we had some other expenses that were in there, like insurance and things like that, that we paid, that are all in that 8110 budget.
Is that,
I'm good with that.
all right, we have an amended motion and the second. Is there any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 No.
Aye.
So approved. All right, going back to the fourth quarter appropriations as amended, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion about the remaining line items? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next item under new business is our staff reports. First up is Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Hankins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll apologize in advance for the lengthy number of action items that I have tonight, but there is some good news on there. The first one, the Commonwealth Transportation Board last Tuesday approved a $450,000 grant for rail construction to serve Blue Star at Progress Park. So staff request authorization to execute grant acceptance documents when those are received. They were supposed to be delivered yesterday, and we still haven't received them. So we would request your authorization to review them and sign off on them if we find that we can agree to all the conditions.
Entertain a motion to authorize staff to execute the grant acceptance documents from the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Is that you, Mr. Cook? Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
So approved.
Second item is to ask that you pre-authorize a check for the balance of our fire truck purchase. This one is for the Speedwell Volunteer Fire Department. And we do owe the full balance on this truck, $289,000, and that completes the use of the funds that we've borrowed for that purpose this year.
All right, entertain a motion to pre-authorize a check for the balance of the pumper tanker for Speedwell Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $289,000.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Horning. Is there any questions or discussion?
I take it met specs?
We will find later this week.
Anybody else? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
We know that truck will be delivered sometime the next, we expect a couple of weeks, don't have an exact date yet. But we did find yesterday that the Lead Mines Rescue Squad rock boat that we've paid the initial 50% deposit on, that boat is expected to be delivered in April. You all might have seen on social media that they did have their first water rescue of the year this past weekend, so they expect to put that boat to use fairly quickly once it is delivered. But in order to facilitate that unknown delivery date, we would ask that you pre-authorize a check for the balance for that rock boat in the amount of $24,417.
All right, entertain a motion to pre-authorize a check for the balance of the Lead Mines Rescue rock boat.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Burnett, have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
We've had discussions about Rural Retreat Rescue Squad. You have funds in your current budget in the amount of $32,000, of which $16,000 has already been spent with the rescue squad for payroll support. The squad has requested the additional $16,000 that's in the budget. We've worked out the technical issues. We talked about how we were missing some of their emails, and we're still trying to figure out why those went missing, but we've corrected those. They had a representative at the Fire and Rescue Committee yesterday evening, so they're meeting the terms and conditions that the board has set. The good news is they've made progress. They have more money in the bank than they've had for a while. Staff doesn't recommend that you issue that payment yet, but ask that you, this was the recommendation of the Fire and Rescue Committee yesterday evening to the board, that you authorize staff to make that payment if there is a need determined before the end of the fiscal year.
So would we word that as pre-authorized?
If you'd like. I couldn't work it in another time.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to authorize staff to pay the remaining $16,000 that's budgeted if the need is proven to retreat rescue squad.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Horny. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
And finally, on the action items tonight, you've adopted the camera speed enforcement ordinance. Staff received 5 proposals last Wednesday for LiDAR speed camera enforcement and related citation and processing services. We received 5. 3 of the companies that responded use radar technology, 2 use LiDAR technology. The county staff has reviewed them. Sheriff's Office, the command staff got together and reviewed them last week, and thank you to Chief Deputy Klein for writing the memo that outlined the findings of the command staff, because that meant I didn't have to duplicate their effort. I concurred with their recommendation. Their recommendation is to use the response by Blue Line Solutions LLC of Chattanooga, and we recommend that the board authorize staff to enter into negotiations with Blue Line to arrive at a contract.
All right, entertain a motion to authorize staff to enter into negotiations with Blue Line Solutions of Chattanooga.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, have a second by Mr. Smith.
Maybe all right, Dick.
Unfortunately, I'll be one paying the fine. but-
That was gonna be my discussion, you're gonna be the first one to get
Yeah.
one. Maybe we'll start a poll.
I've started an account just for this.
An escrow account.
Is there any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess I have to abstain.
I'll abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
So approved.
You have the rest of my report, but for the public's information, we are still working on finalizing the rural retreat lake lease. We've got just some minor language that, unfortunately, when you make minor tweaks, you have to send it back up the chain and go through the lawyers again. So it's going through DWR's counsel and through the Office of the Attorney General. I've given them my schedule so that they know about when I need to see it. So hopefully we'll have that for you in early April. We're working on the public safety radio upgrades as well, meeting with the contractor tomorrow on that, and we hope to bring that back at your April meeting as well for final approval and budgeting. And then we've got 2 new dispatchers who'll be starting next week in the dispatch center with their training. We're trying to hire more, but it's promising after a long dry spell to put a couple of new folks in there and get them working toward their certifications.
Anything else, Mr. Hank?
I can keep talking, but you've got my report.
I can too, but you know, they get mad. So don't join.
I'm
their
trying not to
crowd.
get to that point.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hankins. Mr. Bear, County Administrator.
knowing that you had all these public hearings, I kept my report short, Mr. Chairman. Actually, the first item on the report is the Lot 24 Railroad construction bids. We had originally planned to have those bids come in this past week. They were moved out until this upcoming week. I would request that, using Mr. Hankins' term, that you pre-authorize. Now, if you authorize staff to go ahead and proceed with awarding the project to the firms providing the most advantageous bid that meets the construction and time constraint requirements upon receipt. So it'll be 3 weeks until we have another full board meeting after this, so I'd like to go ahead and get that scheduled.
All right, entertain a motion to authorize staff to proceed with the, or no, not pre-authorize, proceed with the, project that, has the best bid. He put advantageous, and I figured I'd butcher it. I was trying to say.
I was wanting you to spell it without looking at it.
All right, I'll open the floor up for a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Horny. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
So approved.
And I would like to have one additional item in front of you. It's a letter from Spillman, Thomas, and Battle. This went to the New River Regional Water Authority. Last Thursday, the New River Regional Water Authority voted to engage the services of Webster Day for amending the service agreements with the expansion of the plant from 4 million gallons a day to 6 million gallons a day. The second bold item down there, the law firm is pleased to serve as bond counsel with County Wythe and the town of Wytheville on the bond issues unrelated to this service agreement. And they are asking for consent of the authority in Wytheville to have concurrent representation. I will let Mr. Farthing speak on that.
Yeah, I don't have any objection to their concurrent representation. The previous work they've done for us is purely financial in arranging bonds for us. The agreement with the Water Authority is a mutual growth, I guess you could say, in the sense that the Water Authority is trying to grow. We want them to grow to serve our needs. I can review and plan to review those documents on behalf of the county. It's just an ethics thing that they're disclosing that they do work for Wythe County. The other bit of trivia here is Mr. Day did the original agreements for the Water Authority, so he has a lot of institutional knowledge, which is very helpful. So I would recommend you accept the, or consent to the concurrent representation.
Do we need to take action?
I would request a motion to consent to concurrent representation.
Entertain a motion to consent to the concurrent representation as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Lawson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. So approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you for keeping yours short, Mr. Mayor. Now, here's a tricky one.
There's still a door here.
County Attorney, Mr. Farthing.
I can do better than Mr. Bear, I think, tonight. I have nothing to report.
It's always tricky when you ask an attorney that.
But like you, I can talk for a while.
Thank you, Mr. Farthing. All right, next item on the agenda is board reports. Got our Building and Ground Committee.
Building and Ground Committee met on March 16th, 2022, and makes the following recommendations. Number one, to authorize staff to proceed with awarding the county office building project to K&A Contracting for bid amount of $3,761,046.
Coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Mr. Baird, do you have anything to add to that?
Unless there are any questions, no, sir.
All right, is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. I'm sorry, you you record yours?
No.
Okay. All right, next, Mr. Burnett.
To authorize the staff to work with downtown Wythe on dates for holding cruise-ins on county properties.
All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion?
So this is, the event that used to be held on Main Street? Is that correct?
It is, and they proposed to move it here last year. Both events that they scheduled were washed out. They didn't get to have either one because of weather. It would be a lot simpler if we were just able to authorize them to use the county parking lots on the days that they request.
Or they want to move it because of the weather or because of something else?
Better access and easier to walk around the cars, get the cars parked than it is on Main Street.
That's a good political answer.
And also, because Tommy Hunley does he has a band and he provides, well, I don't want to say provides funding. Last year he's going to provide funding toward the event, and then Seven Dogs is also involved. So the location is better, they said.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved.
The third item is to authorize $125 a week fuel surcharge to be paid to our mowing contractor, Miller's Lane Care, as long as the fuel prices for regular 87 octane remain above $3 a gallon, and will renegotiate the surcharge should fuel costs go over $5.25 a gallon.
Coming from the committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else from Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Burnett?
That's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Next item is, or next committee is Water Committee.
This is a short one. I'll say, you want all this read? At the March 17th, 2022 Water Committee meeting, the following items were discussed and reviewed. The committee has voted to make the following recommendations. First is the water rates. The board adopt a meter rate structure using the American Water Works Association meter factor. The AWWA method standardizes the allocation of costs to customer classes using equivalent residential connections as a common measurement. The meter rate varies by meter size using the recommended AWWA ERC meter factor and assigns an quality cost to customers based upon their meter size and flow capacity. Do you need the A, B, C, and D's?
I would go ahead and read those, yes, sir.
A is the base rate, ERC, be set at $20.79, and the base rate for various meter sizes set using the AWWA ERC, man, that's hard, all them letters. Meter factors as outlined in the structure below. The meter fee, B is the meter fee for residential water meters at $10.40 per 1,000 gallons. C is the volume rate for commercial water should increase to go from $10.40 to $11.40 for 1,000 gallons. And D is to set a public hearing date to allow the citizens' input. And I'm not reading the charts.
So, do we just need to set a public hearing?
My recommendation would be to set a public hearing for our April meeting. I would do it for the second April meeting of April 26th to give time to advertise this proposal.
All right, entertain a motion to set the public hearing for April 26th.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Lawson. Is there any questions or discussion?
Yes, I was wondering, is the base rate the same as a non-connect fee?
Yes.
Okay.
Base rate will be the same for everyone of 2079, the same rate that it is right now.
That's it.
All right, hearing none, no more questions or discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Second is the industrial rates. The enterprise zone rates are increased based on the consumer price index. The committee recommends the board adopt the below recommended rate for the enterprise zone and make effective July 1st, 2022.
Mr. Bauer, is this the wastewater?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks, sir.
Clarification, this is the industrial rates in the enterprise zone that are in Progress Park. By agreement, they are allowed to increase based on the CPI index, and this is the increase related to the CPI index. So it only applies to those select customers in the industrial park.
All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on this one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
Next is the Lead Mines Rescue Squad. The committee recommends the board pay the water connection fee of $1,000 for the Lead Mines Rescue Squad building located at 4,400 Fort Chiswell Road. This can be accomplished by amending and appropriating from the general fund reserves to line item 32031-441010.
All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on this one?
I will comment, Mr. Jackson brought up at the meeting last night.
Yes, sir.
Thought we'd already done this. Staff did look back. We did approve back last June to pay that amount, but we didn't have it actually in the budget. This will just amend and appropriate and put it in the budget. So he was correct.
That was gonna be my question.
All right, any more questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And last, the committee recommends the board authorize staff to proceed with issuing purchase orders to bidders for the pump station and force main projects that meet qualifications, budget, and time frame for construction. The bids are due in on March 24th, 2022.
All right, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that?
Mr. Bauer, this is part of the wastewater for the new bit industries, correct?
Yes, sir. This is the Lot 24 force main and pump station.
All right, thanks, sir.
Any more questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
So approved. Anything else from the water committee?
I believe that was it, sir.
All right, moving on to Board of Supervisors time. Mr. Terry,
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Horning,
Nothing at this time, sir.
gentleman from Fort Chisholm.
Nothing at this time, sir.
Ms. Lawson,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Burnett,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Cook.
Nothing at this time.
Wow, it was all those public hearings that I set.
I've just got one thing, I'll make it short, because I don't want to hear from y'all. May the 5th of this year is the National Day of Prayer. They're planning on having, or in the early stages, of planning to have a ceremony here in Wythe, probably at the meeting center. They've requested that we do a proclamation recognizing the National Day of Prayer from Wythe County. I know the past couple of years, it's kind of not being held or held online, virtually, different churches, but they're trying to do a countywide one. So if we could get that set up, Mr. Mayor. And they're looking at having it in the evening, so I'll make sure that y'all know when it is if you want to attend. Is there anything we need to do on that?
No, we'll work with staff and draft something up and try to present it to you at the next meeting.
That's all I got. Sorry I had to be the only one, but at least it was good news, not bad news. All right, next item on the agenda is the closed session or closed meeting under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8, consultation with legal counsel to discuss lease agreements. And I will add 2.2-3711A1, personnel matters, dispatch personnel. Entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Do a roll call vote with Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And we are now in closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Mr. Terry, was that a second?
Yes, sir.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now back in the open session. Mr. Terry, if you'll read the resolution.
Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in this closed meeting, to which this certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convened in the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and are considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. And I'll make that a motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Terry to ratify the certification. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Smith. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Cook?
Aye.
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 So approved. And the next thing on our agenda is tomorrow we have a budget work session at 5 o'clock.
And I just put that on there. Y'all figure out what's best for you all to recess and meet.
I will be unable to attend tomorrow.
Same here.
Sounds like tomorrow, though.
I'm done for the rest of the week because we're gone Thursday. I'm gone Thursday and Friday.
Matt's gone Thursday and Friday,
I'm not going to Matt, otherwise.
and Matt and I are both going on next week. So, unless y'all tell me to stick around, and I won't take my
No.
vacation next week. So,
Y'all are taking a vacation, and you're not going to email us.
yeah, I will. Don't worry about that.
And enjoy your vacation.
Make me proud, Steve.
It's hard to
Take a
do.
man's phone.
It's hard to disconnect.
Disconnect, go somewhere with no service.
Yeah.
Do you, I mean,
Matt's going on family vacation
I
in
mean-
Alabama.
so there's 3 of us that can't be here tomorrow, right?
No, I can't either.
Well, forget that.
That answers that question.
Pretty much.
What do we need to?
Well, there's a couple things, and I've got I was hoping to send this to you today, but there's a couple things we need to go over. I mean, basically, out of all of our discussions last week, and we didn't cut it. I mean, I'll talk about Jimmy's area because that's obviously the hugest area that adds a whole lot of personnel. So I haven't taken any of those out because we haven't finalized our discussions on that. But Matt and I have some recommendations on it. But I mean, but of everything we took off last week, really only dropped our budget about $350,000. So, and realized we didn't touch anything on salaries or any of those items in the process. So, you know, I showed you we were about 2.8 off. We're still about 2.5 off in the process. Now, we're going to be over budget this year. I mean, over the revenues of the process. So we got a lot of expenditures out there. We'll have to talk about the tax rate with the numbers of what we do on it. A couple of things that are in there, just some minor amounts to discuss the operational budgets of the fire departments, how evenly we want to get those. The emergency services budget, even if we go with us taking over with a fire and EMS or an EMS on the eastern end of the county, assume it's going to take you until the first of next year to really get all that in place. So you're going to have to be funding lead mines rescue squad in the meantime. You know, the other option, I mean, and I am, part of the discussion we need to have there is, you know, where do we go with that? Where do we go with the structure if we take over some of those things? And that's, I mean, that's big dollars. I mean, whether that's a few $100,000 for lead mines or whether it's going to a whole $2 million department and things like that. So some of those need to be in our discussions.
Well, do you wanna look at the first week of April? We've got economic development and budget on the 5th at 3 and 4. And if we look at that first week in April, maybe that'll give us, time to get the reassessors numbers and kinda see where we're at on that.
Yeah, that would work. We may have to adjust our calendar a little bit on our budget calendar, but, you know, we've got until June 30th and we can adjust that.
Well, I mean, you know, they haven't called a special session yet.
Yep.
In Richmond,
Yep. So we have
so
numbers
we
there.
may be waiting on Richmond.
What I will do is between Matt and I trying to finalize some salary numbers tomorrow, we'll make some adjustments and recommendations there to go in with the numbers we've got and send that, and I'll try to get that sent to you by the end of this week with some of these comments I've got, and then you all can have it to review next week, send your emails to me and stuff like that. And then, I would like to start it, even though it's crazy to do it, either the 4th or the 5th, possibly. I know the 6th is our committee meetings. We can do the 6th. I was just trying to give staff a little bit more time to try to get numbers finalized after we did it. But 6th would be fine.
April 6th,
Yeah.
what committee meeting?
Economic development at 3 and
That's on
budget.
the 5th.
No, we had moved those to Wednesday
No,
because of the, I think you all agree with Colleen's email to move all those to Wednesday because I had that standing meeting with
yeah, I'm
Blue
sorry.
Star on.
I'm looking at it's not been changed on the county website.
Oh, okay.
So if you want me to show up, somebody needs to fix it. Because that's my backup.
But, Tuesday is good for me. If Tuesday works for you all, even though it's not when all the committee meetings are, Tuesday would probably be my preferred night to do it.
That's,
So we have 1 day or 2 days?
I'm gonna try to get it all done in one day,
I'm gonna have to do it by telephone.
okay?
I have back surgery on the 4th, and I'll just get home on the 5th. I gotta spend the night in the hospital.
So why can't you be here then?
I may be doped up and not be worth a damn anyhow. I don't know.
One day after back surgery, so just get your rest.
Well,
So what time on
I don't-
Tuesday?
You all
every
tell me
surgery
what's
I've
good
had,
for
I've been
you
off
all.
pain
Is
medicine the next day.
5:30 good for you all?
The 5th?
Yep.
Makes me itch.
And I'll have to do by phone on the 5th, because Tiffany has surgery at Baptist on the 5th. But I don't
We'll
care.
set you
I've
up
been
on
calling
Zoom or
you
something.
Zoom or whatever, I can do that.
Set it up on Zoom or something. I mean, the other option is Monday the 4th. Planning Commission meeting meets that night, but we could do it at the EOC.
I'm good whenever, I mean,
4th, I'll be under the knife.
I'm good on the 4th.
you can Zoom.
Yeah, right.
Couldn't Zoom from the table.
They're doing my back. I don't think you wanna see my backside.
Matt would probably be attending the Planning Commission meeting on the 4th, but that doesn't start till 7, but. Y'all tell us, 4th or 5th, we'll make it work either way.
I'm good either way. Whatever
good
works
either
best for
way.
y'all, I'm good.
I'm better 4th or 6th,
I can do any of the above. Just,
but
I
I
can't
think
be here at 5 o'clock.
You got any problem with the 4th? Let's do the 4th.
If you'll-
5:30?
If you'll send out an email,
Yeah.
please.
You'll have to check with the chairman of the planning commission, see if that's okay.
Ms. Collins, will you help me with sending out emails
If
to
we don't get
everybody
this
on this?
budget done, there won't be no chairman of the planning commission.
All right, that's all I have.
All right, anybody else have anything? If not, we'll be adjourned.
That's okay.